38% clip from beyond the arc, Caitlin Clark connected on yet another three-pointer, her sixth of the evening. As she settled into her chair at the post-game podium, the adrenaline from an electrifying performance still coursed through her veins, while the arena crowd remained energized and broadcasters struggled to find adequate descriptions. She navigated the standard inquiries with characteristic elegance, addressing her game plan, her fellow players, and her dominant showing. However, just as the media session appeared to be concluding, a journalist delivered a statement that caught everyone completely off guard. This wasn't an inquiry, it was an absolute stunner. The entire venue went silent. Clark became motionless. Her facial expression revealed everything. So what precisely was communicated, and why did it render her without words? Let's examine the details. The pivotal moment. Stephen A. Smith's public acknowledgement to Caitlin Clark. The Indiana Fever had just secured an impressive 94-87 triumph over the defending champions, the Las Vegas Aces, directly on Indiana's home floor at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. This wasn't merely another victory, it was a declaration of intent. And orchestrating that declaration once more was rookie phenom Caitlin Clark. Her showing was absolutely spectacular. The statistics appeared lifted directly from virtual reality. 28 points on an exceptional 11-4-18 shooting performance, featuring 6 deep-range three-pointers, 12 assists, 5 rebounds, and merely 2 turnovers throughout 38 intense minutes. This triumph transcended impressive statistics. It positioned Indiana squarely in playoff contention with only several weeks remaining in the campaign, capturing attention throughout the entire league. The arena pulsated with excitement even following the closing buzzer. Journalists crowded the post-game media area, camera shutters clicked rhythmically, and the atmosphere felt electric, as though something unprecedented was about to unfold. Part 2. Clark approached the podium with composure and concentration, addressing the typical barrage of inquiries with her now recognizable blend of modesty and competitive fire. ESPN's Holly Rowe initiated proceedings with a question regarding Clark's evolving on-court connection with Aaliyah Boston, particularly their devastating pick-and-roll execution that dissected the Aces' defense for 18 paint points. Clark smiled, noticeably at ease, and responded, "Our mutual confidence is genuinely strengthening. Aaliyah has demonstrated patience while I've adapted to professional basketball's tempo. Tonight genuinely felt telepathic." Then came an unexpected development from the front section. Stephen A. Smith, the perpetually vocal, perpetually passionate ESPN analyst renowned for his inflammatory perspectives in television dramatics, finally lifted his hand. Until this moment, he'd been remarkably subdued, observing rather than commanding attention, which was uncharacteristic for someone with his commanding presence. Clark, noticing him, acknowledged with a nod. "Stephen A. Go ahead," she stated. He rose deliberately. No theatrical movements, no thunderous delivery, just profound, reflective stillness. His manner didn't align with his trademark style. It carried softness, gravitas, almost solemnity. The atmosphere transformed. Cameras repositioned. Typing ceased. Even the Fever's communications personnel froze mid-motion. "Caitlin," he commenced, "I've practiced this profession for over 3 decades. I've documented every category of athlete imaginable: rookies, all-time greats, disappointments. I've constructed a career confronting athletes when they underdeliver. It defines my livelihood. However, observing you this season, witnessing how you've managed the scrutiny, the astronomical expectations, the adjustment period, it compelled me to reconsider certain positions." He hesitated, rubbing his temples in what appeared authentically emotional. "This wasn't theatrical performance, this was genuine. There's something I've needed to articulate publicly, and frankly, something requiring an apology." The entire venue remained absolutely still. Then arrived the question, not a confrontation, but rather a confession disguised as an inquiry. "How do you sustain such dignity and concentration when commentators like myself, particularly me, have occasionally been unjust, excessively harsh, even incorrect regarding your WNBA transition?" Silence enveloped the room. Caitlin Clark, typically unflappable under pressure, appeared genuinely stunned. The competitor who had navigated deafening hostile crowds, survived intense Final Four confrontations, and endured relentless comparisons to her collegiate achievements suddenly found herself speechless. She parted her lips, then hesitated. Her hands, which had gestured confidently during earlier responses, now rested completely motionless against the podium. "Wow," she finally breathed. I genuinely don't know how to respond." Kelsey Mitchell and Alyssa Smith, already midway down the corridor toward the team bus, halted and reversed course, sensing the significance of what was transpiring. It represented a rare, unfiltered instance in professional athletics. A star athlete caught entirely unprepared, not by a challenging question, but by an unexpected demonstration of humility and respect. Her voice returned, trembling initially but gaining stability. "Stephen A. That carries more meaning than you probably comprehend. Yes, this journey has presented challenges, the criticism, the comparisons, the skepticism, but it motivated me to work harder, to demonstrate I belong, not merely to the league but to myself, to my teammates." She paused again, this time not from astonishment but contemplation. What Stephen A. articulated next elevated that vulnerable moment even further, leaving even the most experienced journalists speechless. So what precisely did he disclose? Continue watching to discover. Stephen A. Smith delivers another stunning confession about Caitlin Clark. Stephen A. Smith sat motionless, his expression unusually solemn. Then, with deliberate movement, he reached inside his blazer and extracted several folded sheets. They weren't printed or refined. These were handwritten, unvarnished, and authentic. It became evident that what was about to transpire hadn't been spontaneous. This transcended typical sports commentary. It was something profound, a moment of accountability, and everyone present could sense it. "There's something requiring articulation," Smith began, his voice more subdued than typical. "And I must state this publicly because I criticized someone publicly. I've delivered commentary that wasn't entirely equitable or adequately informed, and now I need to acknowledge them." He glanced at the papers, then made direct eye contact and began reading. 3 months ago on First Take, I declared Caitlin Clark overhyped. I accused ESPN and our industry of manufacturing her popularity merely to elevate viewership metrics. I suggested she had considerable ground to cover, that she hadn't validated herself, that collegiate excellence didn't guarantee professional capability. His words resonated throughout the press area. Several journalists had lowered their devices. Clark's Indiana teammates, Aaliyah Boston and Erica Wheeler, stood quietly toward the rear. They weren't there for publicity. They were simply present, drawn by the unexpected emotion unfolding before them. Smith proceeded. "I constructed my argument with statistics and logic. However, my tone, my presentation, it was dismissive. I disregarded what she'd already accomplished, how she transformed the entire atmosphere surrounding the WNBA in merely several weeks." Now Smith's voice intensified, becoming louder, more purposeful. "Here's what I've comprehended since. Caitlin Clark is averaging 19.5 points and 8.4 assists per game during her rookie campaign. Diana Taurasi only averaged 17 points her inaugural season. Part 4. Sue Bird merely 14.4. Clark's statistics aren't simply impressive, they're historically significant." He didn't conclude with statistics. "When Indiana competes, attendance surges nearly 50%. Television ratings have tripled, and her jersey sales have increased over 200%. However, beyond commercial aspects, it's her demeanor, her composure, how she credits teammates before herself, how she represents this league consistently." The venue seemed suspended. Even veteran journalists didn't transcribe, they listened. The emotion in Smith's delivery was impossible to disregard. "I was mistaken about you, Caitlin. Wrong to question your preparedness. Wrong to doubt your influence. I evaluated you through obsolete standards. And for that, I owe you, this league, and our audience a genuine apology." That's when the atmosphere transformed. Camera flashes erupted like pyrotechnics. Journalists leaned forward, documenting every syllable. ESPN's Holly Rowe dabbed tears while simultaneously scribbling notes. Adrian Wojnarowski, typically stoic, was filming on his device, his instincts recognizing this as historically significant. Even Sue Bird stood, applauding softly initially, then with increased conviction. Soon others participated, media personnel, production teams, even Fever employees. It had transcended a press conference, it had become a moment. Aaliyah Boston approached the podium and gently placed her hand on Clark's shoulder. Caitlin hadn't uttered a word yet. Her eyes glistened with emotion. Her breathing slowed, attempting to process the scene developing around her. Then all attention shifted toward her. What would she articulate? Would she accept his apology? Would she confront him? Would she cry? And with that, the room collectively held its breath, anticipating Clark's response. However, what she did next left even the most veteran journalists astounded. Continue watching as we reveal every detail. Caitlin Clark responds with powerful statement. Caitlin Clark inhaled deeply, her voice now steadier, firmer, yet still laden with emotion. "You don't owe me an apology," she stated, eyes fixed on Stephen A. Smith. "The media is designed to challenge athletes. It's supposed to push, to critique, to ensure we're earning our position. That pressure, it's integral to the profession. What matters most to me isn't that you once doubted me, but that today you're standing here acknowledging that your perspective evolved because the evidence evolved. That kind of integrity, that requires courage." Her words didn't simply echo. They resonated throughout the space. She gradually scanned the room at other journalists, many of whom had questioned her early difficulties during the challenging beginning of her WNBA journey. There existed no resentment in her expression, only clarity. "Truthfully," she added, "the criticism ignited determination within me. It compelled me to push harder, dig deeper, not merely to silence skeptics but to demonstrate to myself I could compete with elite players, that I could generate impact at this level." The transition from collegiate to professional basketball was genuine and demanding. However, I knew I'd navigate it successfully. That's when the press conference's tone shifted. What had commenced as routine post-game questioning now resembled meaningful dialogue about media accountability, about pressure, about the evolving landscape of women's basketball. It had become personal and everyone felt it. Adrian Wojnarowski, seated quietly near the rear, raised his hand. Renowned for breaking news exclusives, he spoke with rare gentleness. "Caitlin, following up on what Stephen A. expressed, how do you perceive media coverage of women's basketball has transformed since your arrival? And what developments do you hope to witness next?" Clark took her time, nodding thoughtfully before responding. "It's transformed substantially and positively. There's considerably more coverage now. More cameras, more supporters, more young girls watching and believing this can represent their future. That's monumental. However, increased attention also generates increased pressure. And while that's not inherently negative, it only benefits if the criticism remains fair and well-informed." She turned briefly toward Smith again. "That's what I respect about today." Part 5. What Stephen A. expressed demonstrates growth and attentiveness. Women's basketball isn't simply a reflection of the men's game. We're constructing something distinctive. It's faster, more intelligent, different. It requires coverage reflecting that reality. We don't need formulaic commentary. We need individuals who comprehend what makes this moment historically significant. Rebecca Lobo, former WNBA star turned ESPN analyst, leaned forward, her voice adding experiential depth to the exchange. "Caitlin, you've been labeled the face of a WNBA revival. That's substantial responsibility. How have you managed that weight?" Clark smiled, no longer caught unprepared. "Honestly, I never intended to become the face of anything. However, when you experience pressure, you either crumble or elevate." She paused. What followed next, however, wasn't a question. It was the unexpected letter. But who authored it? And what did it disclose that left Caitlin struggling with tears? Stay engaged. The letter that silenced the room. Stephen A. Smith had already astounded the venue with a heartfelt public apology. However, what transpired next silenced even the most experienced journalists. He slowly returned to his seat, the room still buzzing with emotion, and reached once more into his jacket's interior pocket. This time he extracted a small, creased paper worn at the folds as though it had been handled repeatedly, kept close for reasons transcending professional obligation. "There's something else requiring articulation," he began, his voice softer now, touched with something deeper. "This might represent the most important element. Caitlin, this is from my daughter." A hushed murmur permeated the room. He paused, then continued. "Her name's Maya. She's 12 years old, plays basketball at her middle school back in New York. She's followed your journey since your junior year at Iowa. Several months ago, around the identical period I was critiquing your professional transition, she wrote you something, a letter. She made me promise that if I ever received the opportunity to meet you personally, I'd deliver it to you. Smith rose from his seat and slowly approached the podium, the small note in his extended hand. Caitlin Clark, visibly moved, accepted it with a soft, "Thank you." Her fingers carefully unfolded the delicate paper as though it contained more than words, as though it contained